Hey folks, this is Rob from LearnByTheDrop.com, a place to learn Drupal, and this is lesson 14 of my special Getting Started with Drupal video series, where we walk through building a Drupal site step by step. And in this lesson, I'm going to focus on multi-user blogging and look at some of the steps that you need to take to get started with multi-user blogging on a Drupal site. Things like reviewing the user permissions, adding new users from the administration section, path auto, making sure that you have path auto properly set for new blog posts, user information blocks, a list of authors, and also creating a special editor role. So let's get started by heading over to our test site, and I'm already logged in here. I've got my administration menu bar up at the top, and that's something that we set up very early in the Getting Started with Drupal series when we added some important modules. Highly recommended resource. The administration menu bar makes things a lot easier as far as getting around within Drupal. First thing that we want to do is we want to head over to user management and take a look at permissions. And when we first created our Drupal site, we had basically everything available to us as the first user on a Drupal site. Your permissions go above and beyond what you'll find here on the permissions page. And now that we're allowing people to sign up for the site as bloggers, we want to make sure that we have the permissions for the authenticated user, which is what we're going to assign to these bloggers, set properly. So a few of the things that you want to make sure of. First of all, if you want to allow people to blog on the site, you want to take a close look at the blog module. You're going to want them to be able to, at the very least, create blog entries. You're probably going to want to allow them to delete their own blog entries, and you can see we have that checked there. And you're also going to want to allow them to edit their own blog entries as well. Now, a little later, we're going to create an editor role using these permissions so that you can actually assign the ability for one of the bloggers on your site to perform some editing tasks, like deleting the blog entries and maybe also editing blog entries as well. We're going to want the user to make sure that they have access to comments. Probably be a good idea to allow them to post comments without approval from any spam module that you might have going. In this case, we have Malum, subscribing to comments, accessing the site-wide contact form. Now, it's a good idea when you're going down this list to, at the very minimum, allow the blogging user to do at least as much as what anonymous users can do. And if they can't do what an anonymous user can do, then you're probably shorting them there on features. So at the very least, make sure that that's equal. In this case, we want to make sure that they have access to the FCK editor module, which is our rich text editor. We'll give them access to allow file uploads, rate content, post with no checking, because in this particular case we're setting up the users, and so we feel safe that they're not going to put any spam on our site. We want them to be able to access content just like anonymous users. Since we're really only interested in having these people create blog posts on our site, we're not going to give them access to create things like pages and stories. And also not going to give them the ability to edit or delete revisions. We do want them to be able to use their real name, which is a module that we set up in the previous lesson. We want them to be able to access service links, upload files, view uploaded files, and just like anonymous users, access user profiles. So that should be fine. And if you've made any changes to that, you're going to want to save them. Now, the next thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to set up, you're going to want to set up your users, and you're going to want to add them to your site. So to do that, we'll go over to User Management, Users, and then add user. And there's a form, built right within Drupal that allows you to just add whatever user that you want to the site, and also automatically send them an email address that lets them know that you've added them. Now, I've already added at least one other user. I'm going to create another username. I'm going to call this user Sports Fan, and I'm going to provide an email address, which is going to be one of my other email addresses. And then we want to give them a password. And this will all get emailed to them so that they'll know they're a user on the site. They're going to be active to start out, and we're going to notify them of their user account. So we've created a user account, and it's automatically going to create a default profile. And a couple of things that we'll see here is they're just going to have a very basic profile, and we can allow them to to set up their profile, or we could set it up for them. Now, if we want to check a list of all our users and see what our users are doing on the site, we can go to Users List, and we'll see that there are 3 users here on the site. Now, the first one is me. The second one is also me, and I just set up this other user, and again, using the real name module, I put in a full name there of Mr. Blogger. And in the previous lesson, we looked at how to set up user profiles like this. So I recommend checking out lesson 13 if you haven't seen that yet. So that's set up, so we can see a list of who our users are, and we can also perform some different operations like blocking, unblocking, and deleting the user. We can also see how long they've been a member for and when their last access on the site was. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go get Sports Fan over here set up a little bit on the profile side, and then what I'm going to do is come back and we're going to look at setting up Path Auto. We're going to look at what your blogging list will look like now that you have some blog posts from new users on the site, and also set up a list of authors and create that editor role. So I've gone in and made some updates to that particular user. We could see that it still has a username Sports Fan, but I've added a link there. I've uploaded a user picture. If we want to, we could go in and make some other edits, like personal information. We can give them, a real name. We could just say Mr. Sports Fan. And then the bio, I really love sports. Put a smiley face in there. Gender male. Okay, so that should be updated, and we can go back to our list of users. Okay, and we can see that we have our three users set up here. There's information about them on their profiles that people can access, and again, we set that up, set the profiles up in lesson 13. So they should be all ready to get started blogging. Now, one thing that we want to look at, we want to make sure of, is that we have our paths set up properly in Path Auto. And so what we want to do is go to site, I believe it's site building URL aliases, and this is and then we want to set our automated alias settings, and this is our Path Auto module that we set up early in the series, which will automatically create proper paths to blog posts. And we'll take a look at what that is going to end up looking like once we get a blog post in. But first thing is the path to our blog page we have set up as blogs, and then the username, and that's going to be fine. We're going to leave that, but we want to make sure that our node path settings include the user now as well. You see, our pattern for our blog entry right now is blog slash year, month, date, and then the title. And actually, if I open in the new tab, just for those of you who haven't been following along, for example, this particular blog post is /blog, and then the year, the month, the day, and the title. And what we want to do now is we want to make sure that we append the user name for that blog post on it. And so what we would do is we would open up our replacement patterns and see what replacement patterns are allowed. And what we could do is select the author username there, author name raw, and we could insert that. I just did a copy paste so that, and then we just click Save Configuration, and then what that will do is that will alter the automatic paths for the users to make sure that the username is concatenated after the blog part of the address. So once we've done that, we should be ready to create a couple blog posts for the users. Now, one thing that I recommend is that you set up your own test account as for each type of user role on the site, and that you actually try to act as that account. And what that will allow you to do is just to make sure that things are set up the way that you think they should be set up. So what I'm going to do right now is create a couple of blog posts and then come back and take a look and see what that looks like. Now, one thing that you can do as the site administrator is you can actually create posts for users. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're just going to quickly create a blog entry to see if our settings look right. And we're just going to say, call this title Sports Blog Post. And then our post category, we'll just give it fun, and we'll give it a tag of sports, baseball, and let's just say I'm new here and a baseball fan. My favorite team is the Mets. Now, what you can do down here, like I said, is if you go into authoring information, you can change the author. So it looks like it was authored by another user. Let's preview that. And for publishing options, let's just say it's not promoted to the front page, but it is published. And click Save. Okay, so now what we should see is we should see that the blog post was created, and just like we set up in Path Auto, we now have the name of the user set in there. So that's exactly what we're looking for. And now we can also see that if we go to blogs/sportsfan, that sportsfan has a blog right there. Now, since we're going to have multiple users on the site, one thing that we might want to do also is represent the users by making sure that we put the user picture into the post. So why don't we head over and set that up right now, so that when we go to, for example, the overall blog, that we can have an identifying picture in the post that shows people which user created that particular entry. Okay, so let's head over to Site Building, Themes, Configure Global Settings. And then we're going to select User Pictures and Posts. and save that configuration. Okay, now let's go over to blog. Okay, we don't see that, so let's actually go back and make sure that we've got our Aquamarina set up as well to have user pictures and posts, and that should do the trick. Aquamarina being the active theme on the site. Now we should see it. Okay, so now we see the user pictures in the blog post as well, so that someone who's new to the site can quickly identify which user is posting each particular blog. If they click on in the links section for that person's blog, they then will see all of that particular user's posts, and each blog will also have its own RSS feed, which doesn't look pretty in Google Chrome, which is what I'm using right now. So each blog has its own page on the site, and it has its own RSS feed as well. Well, let's go back to that. Okay, so now that we have that set up, one other thing that we might want to do, if we go back to the home page, is just for the user experience. For example, when a user goes over to the blog page, we might want to have a list of who the authors are, maybe over here in the left in the sidebar, and that's something that we can easily set up with a standard block that comes with the core Drupal installation. Let's go over to Site Building, Blocks, List, Aquamarina. And then what we want to look for is the Who's New block. And what we're going to do is we're going to use Who's New as simply as a list of authors. So first thing we want to do is configure it. We're going to give it a block title and call it Site Authors. We have a limitation here. We can show up to 10 users. So if you have more than 10 bloggers, you'll need another solution for this. We're just going to leave it at 5. And we're going to say show only on the listed pages. So let's just say blog/star, and then also blogs/ actually, we're just going to show that on gettingstarted.awakenvoice.com/blog. And so all we would need to do, since it's /blog, is put blog in there, select show only on the listed pages, and click Save Block. And then we need to place the block. So let's see, I believe we're going to want that in sidebar first, which is over here on the left. And we can have that above comments, and when we move something like that, we want to save it. Let's go over to blog. Okay, so now we have our list of authors, and that will provide links that will go directly to that particular author's profile. And so that's just a feature that makes things easy for the users on the site to sort of connect with who your authors are on the site, contact them, and provide more feedback. Okay, so now that we have our list of site authors set up, one other thing that we can do is we can add author information to each particular post. So for example, if I click through to a post, I can have a block that has information from the author's profile included, and it's pretty easy to do. We can go to Site Building, Blocks, and scroll down, and we've got an author information block, and we can click Configure on that. We can set a block title. In this case, we'll have the title be about this author. We can select different profile fields to display, and it gives us the information here. It says only fields designated as public in the profile field configuration are available, so that's important to know. And then also, where do we want the blocks to show up? And in this particular case, we want it to show up on every particular blog post that is posted. So in this case, the path to that would be blog/star. And if we made any changes, we'd want to save that. And then next thing we want to do is place the block. And I think we want to put that on the right side here, the area that we call sidebar last. See how that looks. And we can select sidebar last. And we can have that above our service links. We can always come back and change that if it doesn't look good. Click Save. Let's head over to Blog. Now, we don't expect to see that author information block here, but we do expect to see it if we click through to a post. And you can see that we now have this about this author block. It's got the bio information, the home page, and then also a link to the full user profile. So that that just makes the site a little bit more user friendly, and by default it also includes the picture as well. Okay, so now that we've got those few things set up, the last thing that I want to walk through is setting up a special role for an editor on your site. So you can assign a particular user the permission to be an editor and give them, basically special permissions that the other bloggers don't have. So what we want to do is go over to roles, and we want to create a new role, and we're just going to call the role editor and select add role. And then we can see that's added. We're going to click edit permissions for the editor. And actually, I like to do this from the permissions page. First thing we want to do is we want to make sure the editor has at least as much power as authenticated users. And then we'll add a few things. So we'll go down and we'll sync up with the authenticated user, and then we'll add some editing powers as well. Okay, we'll save that. Now, in addition, we will want editors to have a few other things that they could do. In this case, let's say an editor can delete any blog entry, and that an editor can also edit any blog entry as well. Let's say that editors can also administer comments. And yeah, that's pretty much what we're going to do right there. And click Save Permissions. Okay, now what we'll want to do is, now that we've saved that editor role and the permissions to go along with that role, what we'll want to do is assign it to a user. So let's go over to User Management, List Users, and we can select Mr. Blogger. Say add a role to the selective users, editor. Click on that and click Update. So now it says that the update has been performed, and now that has been, actually, if we go over to Mr. Blogger's profile and we click Edit, we can see that they have the role of editor there, and we can take that role away at any time Now, one thing that I recommend doing is logging in as the editor role and making sure that the editor can do what you want them to do. So that's what we're going to check out right now. Okay, so I'm logged in as blogging user, and the two key things that I want to make sure that that the blogging user can do are manage comments and edit blog posts. So if I go to content management, comments, published comments, I should be able to access that and get to the approval queue as well, if there are any in the approval queue. And so let's say I want them to be able to just, let's say, unpublish this particular comment. And I'm able to make that update. So that's good. Now if I go to the approval queue, I should see that. Now another thing that this user should be able to do is edit blog posts as well. So let's go over to the blog, click on that sports blog post that we created, and now they should see this edit tab here. And they can go in and make the edit. Now one thing I'm seeing here is that we can't see the particular the rich text editor, excuse me, and because of that, that's probably because I didn't add it for the role. So what I'm going to want to do after this is go back and add that, and let's just see that we can edit this and preview, and we just want to make sure that the addition goes in. So, and there's the change that was made. So what we want to do is go back to user management permissions, and I'm doing this in another browser just to make sure that we've got permissions for that user to see FCK editor, and we do. So that probably means that what we want to do is go over to site configuration, FCK editor, and it tells us not all roles with access are associated with profiles. Create new or edit FCK profiles below. In the basic setup section, select roles allowed to use this profile. And so what we'll do is we'll go over to profiles for authenticated users, and we'll give the editor access to that as well. Select update profile, and when we go back, that should all be straight. So it's important to note that when you make changes, it might affect other particular modules that you have on the site. That's why testing is very, very important. Okay, let's come back here, refresh this page, and then we're going to select edit, and we should see that FCK editor show up. And we do, which is good. And go back to our blog. Okay, well, this has been Rob from Learn by the Drop. You've been watching Lesson 14 of the Getting Started with Drupal series. Some tips and a walkthrough of how to set up multi-user blogging on the Drupal platform. You can access all of the lessons in the Getting Started with Drupal series by heading over to learnbythedrop.com/getting started, and you can also purchase premium video versions which are encoded at full 1024 by 768 resolution, so they're very sharp. You can purchase them there as well for a very reasonable price, and 10% of my revenues are passed on to the Drupal Association. So you're supporting Drupal as well. Lesson 14, Getting Started with Drupal, Setting Up Multi-User Blogging. Thanks for watching.